He who shines without feeling the need to be seen will understand the true depth of power. And this is why, by the way, welcome to a Semen Retention Sunday episode here on the Regal Change account. Your silence is going to be the most powerful tool that you can have on semen retention. In fact, it's going to be your silence that demonstrates your true capacity for raw, primal power and strength. And when you move in silence, because a lot of people don't know how to move nowadays, it's just very bizarre to me how many people will tell each other what they're planning to do and what they're trying to do here and what they're trying to do there. And I understand it though, because I used to be that way. I used to be the one that was an open book, that super transparent about everything. And I am transparent about everything if I'm asked about it, but I don't go around just, talking about whether or not, my strategies are this way or that way specifically for a reason, because I've learned that if you don't build a strong foundation, if you don't know how to protect yourself, and if you don't know what to do with temptations, no matter what kind, especially when it comes to lust, if you don't know what to do with these things and you don't have these pillars, then it's going to be very challenging for you to really maximize your potential and minimize the cost. Because if you don't build a solid foundation, if you don't know how to protect yourself, and if you give in to the temptations, then there's going to, no matter what kind of temptation it is, because as long as we walk this earth, there are going to be temptations. I think this is something that many people don't want to admit to themselves, and that they don't want to admit is going to be a struggle and a challenge that they're going to have on the semen retention journey, is that the temptations are going to magnify in their exacerbation and their force of trying to get you to go back to old ways, or just to try to destroy your life. They might try to keep you from doing things. They, like these demons out here, we literally walk amongst the dead. Like, it is night of the living dead out here. There are a lot of people that are just spiritually dead that are walking. They don't know how to live a fulfilling life. Even if life is chaotic or hard or difficult or strenuous, they don't know what to do to even get close to God. They don't know even how to find meaning in just maybe drinking a glass of water or eating food. Just being grateful for the things that you do have. And for some reason, it's like semen retention just puts this on. It's not like autopilot, but it's very much more natural. Gratitude is much more natural. Being who you are is much more natural. And this is where your raw power is going to come in from. It's just your essence of being. And for some reason, there's just always a way. Like, God always provides a way. For some reason, you might not know that reason. You might not understand the reason. But God's going to provide a way when you are retaining your seed. And it's not just when you're retaining your seed, of course, right? But it's like, for some reason, and anybody that's actually practiced the practice understands this, but it's like, for some reason, like, no matter what happens, you can always land on your feet. No matter what happens, there's always a way, because you have the will to do so. A lot of people just don't have the will. They might have everything. This is something that I've seen with a lot of people that are more, not on like I would say they're well off. They have everything at their disposal. They have everything they could possibly need. And yet they don't have themselves. And I've seen the same thing with people that are not well off. They don't have anything but themselves. And guess who's happier? Guess who's happier? The people that don't have anything but themselves. Now, this is not to say that people that are well off aren't happy, or that being well off can't solve a lot of issues or problems. And I don't think I think a lot of people don't want to admit that, being well off can actually solve a lot of issues in your life. But simultaneously, none of it's going to mean anything unless you have you. And this is where you move in silence. This is where you don't tell everybody what's going on. This is where you don't just try to talk about everything. Let me ask you this. Maybe you can answer in the comment section. Would you rather have, I don't know, $500,000 and nobody know who you are? Nobody knows. Or would you rather have $10 million but everybody knows who you are? I would take the 500,000 personally, because it's good to be known. Don't get me wrong, it's important to be known. There's something psychologically healthy that's about being known. But at the same time, when you have a certain amount of money, let's say, do you really want to, when you have a certain amount of resources, not even money, when you have a certain amount of resources, do you want to go around telling people how many resources you always have? No, not necessarily. Because that's going to put a target on your back. And gold diggers, the women that are out to just, take, they're going to be showing up. And I think that it's really good for a man. It's important for a man, if he can, to create a relationship with a woman that he can build something with. Now, a lot of women want a man that's pre-packaged and, ready to go. And I understand that. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just, I think that when a woman can see that a man is capable of building something beyond, then there's something more powerful about him that she's drawn to through time. But it takes time to do that. It takes time to build that. And the only thing that I see that's really happening with most relationships nowadays is where the woman she wants that prepackaged man. She wants everything ready to go for her, so that, if something bad happens or she doesn't like the dopamine levels that she's getting, she can drop out and no problem, no harm, no foul. She can get what she can and leave. And that's just the way that most women are. It's not all women, of course, but that's the way a lot of women are. And there's good women out there that will want to build with you when you're not there yet. But this is why you need to move in silence. And that way, the women that are actually curious about you for you will reveal themselves. This is something else that I see a lot of men, of course, we are like the salesmen when it comes to relationships. Men are like the salesmen, whereas women are basically like advertisement ads, right? They're showcasing, like, here's this available, right? Whereas men are like here, this is why you want me, basically, right? Like that's the approach in the intersexual dynamics that people have. So it's kind of interesting to see the dynamics play out this way, because women want to be the show, right? They want to be the show, and men want to have like the silver tongue and everything and all of that. And we're actually doing the Art of Seduction class series in the Regal Change Academy starting in a couple weeks from now. And so if you want to sign up for that, now's the time to enroll, because enrollment for that class specifically ends in a couple weeks. But this is why we're going to be going over that class, is because it's not just about seduction. It's about understanding the archetypes and understanding the kinds of value that you're going to be able to implement in your life using the techniques that Robert Greene, because we're going to be reading Robert Greene's Art of Seduction book. Not the whole thing, because it's like 450 pages or whatever, but we're going to be reading a lot of it. and about how to implement these archetypes and understanding like how to see whether or not somebody's preying on you or how to seduce somebody else into something. And it's not really about, seduce itself. Like, it's not about the essence of like this lustful desire itself. It's more about how to understand what people want. It's about understanding human psychology. Okay. And I consider myself someone who is very astute when it comes to the levels of recognizing certain psychological factors in people. Being understanding of human psychology is literally like my job to a lot of degree, and that's where I must be the kind of person that I am in order to do this kind of a thing, in order to understand this kind of a thing. But a lot of people are in denial about the true power of combining semen retention with silence, because when you're able to observe and your discernment is higher, when you're able to sit to yourself and say, like, I'm competent, I'm dexterous, I'm able to see things as they really are. If you can have this kind of self-talk combined with semen retention, combined with being close to God, because that's really what semen retention is about, right? It's about being closer to God. And sometimes you're going to go through trials and such that, man, holy moly, man, it's just, you weren't even thinking about that. You weren't even looking out for that. And it's not because you weren't trying to, it's not because you didn't want to be discerning. It's just that you weren't even understanding that this capacity for potential maliciousness is actually in the world, and is that a failure on your part? Perhaps. But now you can go into the next experience understanding, like, okay, there are people that are literally going to try to destroy everything that I've built if I let the enemy, who might be them, know what my plans are. Okay, and this is why I say never fully reveal anything. And I'm not saying that, look, this is not advice. I'm no longer giving advice on this channel. I'm just not. I don't feel as though anyone, especially myself, is qualified to give advice. Now, I'll be able to tell you what's worked for my life, what hasn't worked for my life, etc. But I'm done giving advice. Okay, I'm not qualified, and I don't know if anybody other than God really is qualified to really give advice. But that doesn't mean that people don't have good things to say. It doesn't mean that people don't have good perspectives. It's because of what they've gone through. It's because of what they've experienced, right? And this is why, building a strong foundation, protecting yourself, 4 things to do, like understanding the 4 things to do with temptations. Okay, I'm calling this the 4-4-4 sacred system, sacred seed system. Okay, so it's the 4-4-4 sacred seed system, and I made this recently because I want to give myself a baseline. I wanted to give myself a baseline, and then I realized, like, okay, no, this is actually, I'm going to enhance this a little bit to provide it for all of the men specifically that are going through semen retention and that are going through struggles and such. And I'm going to put that for free on the Telegram channel that I have. Links are in the description box below for that. And it's going to be free for the next 4 days, keeping the 4-4-4, numerology thing going here, because numerology is real. I'm sure everybody's heard the saying of, well, maybe not everybody, but there's probably a lot of people that have heard the saying that I've heard from one of the clients that I have been meeting with in the Godlike Mastery Initiation program recently. He said, millionaires don't believe in astrology, and millionaires don't believe in astrology, billionaires do. And I'm pretty sure that it's the same thing with the types of numerology and such that are out there, because that kind of stuff, it is real, but it's not real in the way that you think. Okay, you've got to be careful with this kind of stuff, but it is important to understand this. But anyway, the 444 Sacred Seed System, that'll be available for free in the Telegram channel for the next 4 days, and then otherwise it'll be in the Regal Change Academy. All right. So really what I want to drive home in this video is that when you move in silence and people don't know what to comment on, that's where things can go awry. That's where things go awry for them, because they don't know what to attack. I'm coming out with a book this week. Okay, the book is going to be called The Book of Oldishness. And I've been working on this book for 5 years. And only maybe 4 people have heard about this book that I've been working on in the time that I've actually worked on it. Okay? And those are people that were in my circle, or that are in my circle. And I don't tell other people unless it's like really important for like the like my one-on-one sessions, for example. Unless it's really important, then I'm not going to bring anything up in those kinds of situations. But I brought up to one other person in a one-on-one session about the book. And so I know exactly who I've told and exactly who I haven't told about this book. And I know why I've told each person about this book. And the book is going to be a series of 38 visions that I decode and analyze from a philosophical and psychological point of view that I had at the height of the global lockdowns during the pandemic. And so there's going to be those 38 chapters with 38 visions that I go through. And I didn't tell anybody about this. I didn't tell anybody. I moved in silence about this because I knew that I'm pioneering something right here. It may not be the complete first time somebody's done something like this, but I know that for me, this is like what I'm doing with this kind of work that I am giving so much more value, and I'm focused on the input way more than the output right now. And the input is what matters. If you can keep focusing on the input, because that's what the person who moves in silence does. They focus on the input. They don't focus on the output. They focus on feeding themselves and not people that don't really care to be fed to begin with. They don't really want your food. It's like you have Wagyu beef, right? You have Wagyu beef and you're like, guys, I have Wagyu beef. And they're like, what the fuck is Wagyu beef? You know, like, well, we just want our McDonald's, bro. And you're thinking to yourself, like, dude, it's Wagyu beef. What do you mean you want McDonald's? Like, what do you mean you want McDonald's? I've got Wagyu beef that I'm wanting to give you. And they're like, no, we don't want that. We want McDonald's, bro. You can't feed people that stuff. If you have value, don't care about the people that want McDonald's. Okay? Don't care about them. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about them as people, like have intrinsic understanding of their worth, but let them live. Like, live and let live. But at the same time, don't be a doormat. Don't be tolerant, right? I mentioned this in my last video. Tolerance is such an ugly word, but if you've got Wagyu beef, give it to the people that want Wagyu beef. And that's how you move in silence with power on semen retention. Because you are now the walking Wagyu beef. You are now the Wagyu. And the women that notice, they're going to want you. The women that know that you're a valuable person because you actually have intrinsic value, that you know who you are. You have self-confidence in a way that nobody else does. No other man does. Yes, that's it right there. Okay? You've got the Wagyu beef. You're a walking Wagyu beef. Those other guys are McDonald's. They're the depleted Coomers that come every day. That's just what they are. That's what they do. And it's gross, but it is what it is. All right? So with all that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful for you. Peace be with you. Until next time.